I said something on my stream today. I said the Palantir shareholders should sell and buy Nvidia. What do you guys think?
No.
Dude, why don't you like Palantir? I don't get it.
It's too expensive. I don't want to buy something at like an 8 peg.
I get it, but like you've never liked Palantir ever. When it was
I was a Palantir shareholder.
You didn't like it though.
You didn't like it though. You hated it.
I was a Palantir shareholder.
You didn't like it.
I did like it. I love technology. I just don't like expensive technology. And that's not even true. I'm a huge fan of Nvidia, but Nvidia
how much EPS do you think Nvidia does in 2026?
I mean, I don't want to give estimates, but I think
because that's the name of the game, right? They've got to do it.
Which company is going to do 40% plus growth over the next 2 years? Is it going to be Palantir or is it going to be Nvidia?
Porque no los dos.
Yeah, look, I see a path for Palantir.
Okay, do we want to go up to 50, 60%? Where does Palantir drop off and Nvidia doesn't?
50, I think 40% is possible. 50 is a little aggressive to get there.
Yeah.
I think 40 is possible.
But Nvidia is more Doge or something. You'd have to have Doge adopt Palantir as a whole thing and all that comes from it. But I don't think that's happening.
Yeah. Look, Palantir is expensive. We all know it's expensive. It got a 20% haircut to start the year, so it's not like it's staying as expensive as it was. The question is, in February 3rd, we'll see. We got the date today. Can they guide for 35 to 40%? If they don't, maybe we get another haircut, and maybe that's okay. If it comes back to 50, 45, maybe that's okay. I wouldn't mind buying more at a cheaper price, but I also know that because of all the tailwinds that exist, it doesn't have to get back down to that price, even with a less than stellar earnings growth guidance.
But why don't you buy the company that's cheap today, and then if the market sells off, then it'll get cheaper?
It's a good question.
Nvidia seems like a buy at 130, and it'll seem like a better buy at 110.
So June actually had a valid question there, Tanner. She says the real question is if Nvidia or Joby does better. So
I'll put my money on Nvidia, but I wish Tevis the best of luck.
Do you know about that, Amit?
I know you guys are having your bet back and forth.
And Tanner got Tevis good payback because his Unity given to him before.
No, I believe in it.
And he's like, he believes in it so much he owns no shares. And he's like, hey, own $100 of Joby.
Here's my thing on that Nvidia point. I think Nvidia is cheap at 130. The problem is I can't explain Nvidia as well as I can explain Palantir. And I know software is going to matter a bit more than hardware over the next decade because that's what makes AI useful. And I know Nvidia is getting to software, all this stuff. But I do think I can explain Palantir. Nvidia, I don't think I can explain. I can kind of explain it, but can I really explain it? And that is one of the other hesitations I have to just buy Nvidia, unless I'm just buying it without caring about it. And I, when I have a new position, I try to like really understand it.
Think about the hours that you've put into learning Palantir.
Yeah.
Versus the lack of hours that you put into Nvidia.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, but you're going to let that shape your potential.
Dude, if I'm holding it, if I'm actually holding it, yeah. I mean, like, if I'm wheeling it, if I'm selling puts and calls on it, that's different. If I'm just like trading it, using it as a trading vehicle. But if I actually want to go long Nvidia, I think I need to, like, I can't tell you in 2027 if these guys are going to go back to 10% growth because the cyclicality is going to take over, AI CapEx is done, or are they going to be at 50% growth? I can't explain that to you. And I don't know if a lot of Nvidia shareholders can explain that either.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is just do the due diligence.
Even with the due diligence, you are assuming a world where they will just keep growing and the CapEx spending will keep being spent. What if that dries up? Right? Like, and now so an Nvidia shareholder might listen to this and be like, Amit's stupid. He has no idea. That's fair, but that's why I don't own the name, because I really don't know if the CapEx spend dries up anytime soon, or at least over the next 5 years.
I think the important thing is it's not just like it's robotics, it's self-driving, it's every single future potential technological advancement. They are becoming just the straight infrastructure for all supercomputing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
So if a company, which will be all companies, needs some level of accelerated compute, they're going to have to go to some cloud provider to set up their business. And underneath all of those companies is going to be Nvidia.
So Microsoft spending $80 billion this year on CapEx. Do you think that will stay $80 billion by 2028?
I don't know.
The answer is probably no. So then the question is, what other companies are spending on that CapEx if Microsoft's? Because 45% of their revenue is hyperscalers.
But the B-list companies will then come in to also buy because they don't want to be directly under ownership for Microsoft. So ByteDance will come in and spend, what they say, $8 billion on NVIDIA GPUs.
Maybe not anymore. If TikTok gets banned, they don't need
You're right. You're right. But they're not going to be the only ones.
I get your point. Yeah.
And so all the robotics companies, all the drive companies, all the professional visualization stuff that Palantir likes to hype themselves up on these digital twins, which will be, in my opinion, owned and operated by through Nvidia software, because this is how kids are coming out of college. Kids are coming out of college knowing CUDA. And they're going to stick with Nvidia. I don't see how they go away.
Dude,
I don't see how it slows if
I was saying on my show the other day, last night, I was like, I kind of feel like just buying 10 shares of every Mag 7 because I agree with your thesis, even if I can't fully explain it as well.
Skip Apple.
Except for fucking Apple. It's like foldable iPads. But I agree. I mean, you're right? Like all the little pushback I'm giving you is more so just me not having fully been like, okay, I'm just ready to go long, which is why I'm giving you the pushback. But you're right. And so if that's the case, yeah, I mean, I can't see a reason why not to go long on both of them.
Yeah, this is another aspect that this was Sherwood, a Robinhood owned newsletter. Yeah. But I mean, they have actually really good charts, and I like them. So more U.S. data centers are under construction than ever, and you can just see what they have in 2025. I read a number of articles too when I was in Arizona. They're building a ton in Phoenix right now. It's actually causing power problems, which is not humorous, but it's a little bit funny. Just like that insatiable demand. And I don't think like 2025 is just going to start plateauing. So
Roy, why don't you own Nvidia? Because you and me are on the same issue. Like we both get it, but we also aren't ready to like.
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. I watched a good chunk of that Investor Day. I missed the first little bit, and I need to go back and watch that. It was impressive, and it's an impressive company. Jensen and Team Nvidia, they tend to continue to innovate. That's the thing. They're like Robinhood, where they have, what they built, other people can copy and emulate and try to catch up, and then they just keep actually even accelerating. And so it's really tough to catch up. And even the price points. I don't know if you saw the price points in some of their new cards. I don't know what AMD's like. I've not built computers and I've not worked on computers in a little while, but they were a lot lower than most people were expecting. At least that's what I took from the comments.
Up to the 5080 series. Then the higher end cards were more expensive.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, like AMD is just, it's not a 1-for-1 comparison with Nvidia, but they probably have the greatest overlap of any company out there. And they're just struggling. It's not just a stock. Like there's real reasons why AMD is not doing great. But I'm thinking about investing in Nvidia, and it's tough because I'm like, I like Nvidia. I think I like Amazon a little bit better. And then there's a couple other names that I'm looking at, and I'm probably just going to do one new position this year, unless I'll exit something completely. Then I'll, maybe go in twofer. But it's not, that'll probably be maybe April or May when I'll have some funds ready to allocate to that. Right now, I'm just DCAing. And I like to have a very concentrated portfolio. That's the other thing is I've seen Nvidia, like sell off and tank to the point where I'm like, man, it's actually very attractive here. Instead of just, normally it's attractive, it's nice, but it's like, oh, this is really, but.
So like what, 120 gets you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so what's the difference between 120 and 130 for you psychologically? That's so challenging to get through. Because it's the same thing I struggle with. I feel.
Well, so if I narrowed it down and Nvidia was the one, and I'm like, okay, Nvidia I think is going to be the best bet. I don't care if it's 120, 130, 138, 142. I'll just buy it because I know I plan to hold it a long term. And Tanner's right. Like I just don't see, there will be competition. Like the only thing, there's a few concerns. One is like you raised, Amit, that they're going to have harder and harder comps. and eventually some of the demand for their products will be satisfied to the point where they just don't have. They'll still have growth, but it won't be as insane as it was before. But they're not priced ridiculously right now, so that's okay right now. They're moving away from the risk there, but there's a Taiwan risk certainly, and of course. I think regulation was one of those risks that is going away with the Trump administration, so that's a good thing. And of course, competition. And part of that competition, he made those comments on quantum computing, which they've actually absolutely tanked. I don't think this is the case, but I know it fits on like the size of this pinhead on what I know about quantum computing. So let's say hypothetically that Jensen, I don't think this is the case, but let's say that he's thinking, okay, quantum computing is the one area that we really can't do anything about. And if the world goes this direction, we're going to lose a lot of what we're actually doing right now. We're behind. And so let me throw out something out there that will tank these people, that'll get the focus off, and will get us time to build that up. Like that's stuck in the back of my mind. I tend to believe him, what he said about quantum computing being a lot further out, just because it seems like it's something that's very, very difficult and hard. And it's weird that all these other firms, including Google, have seen theoretical success with it. And even Google's was like, it was amazing, but it's not like it's not right there, not next door. But that's I think the other risk is that there's something, not even necessarily quantum computing, but there's something else out there that pivots this in a completely different direction that Nvidia is not there already. And that's the one place where I see that. Potentially. Most likely not, but potentially.
I think what's really interesting about the play for Palantir, if you want to say, is the intellectual property or whatever of the building for 17 years before they had a product that they were really like excited to go to market with. And that's really hard to try to catch up and beat because you have a decade plus of learning there. But that is Nvidia on the software side. CUDA, go back and look whenever they started that project. It was like 2013, 2014. Like it has been in, or even, potentially even earlier. It has been in development for a very, very long time. They took a massive investment that didn't pay off for 10 plus years, and now it's paying off. And this is why everyone with all their super bullish talk on AMD, they cannot catch up to the software side, and they're having to go to external partners to say, hey, can you help us on the software side? Because we don't even know what we're doing. And
you think AMD is not a buy the dip at all here, Tanner?
I'm not saying that. I'm just like, it might be. They're so freaking cheap, but like it, I don't know. Nvidia, I'm just like with Tesla, will Tesla and Rivian and Lucid do well? Maybe. I like buying Tesla. I'll buy the winner. Nvidia's the winner.
Yeah.
And
the nice thing in this industry, like we could argue like HIM's different name. You guys don't own it. That's fine. But I'm like, I think it's the winner of the space, but I think so. I don't know. So we need years to be able to determine that. With Nvidia, and I would argue Palantir as well, it's clear now. It's very clear to most market participants. And it's not, even if Nvidia was at an all-time high, like if I was convicted, and I might go this direction of like, okay, out of these names that I'm considering, I have the most conviction in them, I'll buy it at an all-time high. A company like that, that's fine. Like I'd be careful, like if it was trading at like $300, $400, I'd be like, okay, maybe not, because there is a price, to everything. But the price, like whether it's up or down 10%, 50, whatever. I plan to hold this long term, and it's nice to get it at a cheaper price. But I'm not going to, because I've made this mistake before with Tesla, missing the entry of $101 by a single dollar. I've sat on my hands and waited, and instead I started averaging it at 140, 145. So. No, if Nvidia is the one, and it's only based on conviction, and I mean, I would say that's probably a 33% chance that it's Nvidia, 33% chance it's Amazon, and 33% it's one of these other few names. So it's not unlikely. Need more videos on it, Tanner.
I think, well, so I just today, for the first time, I changed the title of my daily stream from FinTech Frenzy to Tech Frenzy.
Did you talk about Nvidia on the show? Or?
Yeah, I talked about Nvidia. I put Jensen on the thumbnail. actually, what's funny enough, although I talk like a lot about SoFi and everything, my number one video on YouTube is an Nvidia video. By like a long shot.
Yo, what if tomorrow you pivot your channel to Nvidia and you
No,
just
'cause I
go
think
straight Nvidia, and then all the SoFi people are like, "Fuck, he left us," and it's like Nvidia.
There's a lot of really smart people that cover Nvidia, like people that are way smarter than me. That's why I never really did it, because I don't actually have a lot to offer. A lot. Like I find my investment greatly in Nvidia has been the total addressable market. I knew early that semiconductors were going to be in everything. It wasn't a bet on AI. It was a bet that my freaking pillow was going to judge my sleep, and that was going to have a GPU in it, and that my microwave was going to have a semiconductor in it, and like every single thing is going to be computerized. And that was my idea. But it just turned out that was artificial intelligence, and like that wasn't even a thing back then. It was gaming was by far their largest sector, and then they were divvying off into other projects. But like now it's data centers, and gaming is a small part, and like people skip past that part in the earnings call to get back to the data center and AI talk.
I think when it comes to AI, we've got to remember.
In my opinion, it is 9 p.m. in the AI party that goes to 4 a.m.
Yeah, so why would you not have a position? In what world do they not take a larger share of the overall? Well, I mean, they don't even have to take a larger share, but if the market size continues to grow, where do they die off?
Dude, it's just hard because I don't understand the actual cyclicality of the business. Because to my credit, Nvidia has been incredibly cyclical in the past. We've seen the ups and downs of it. And so I don't want to be the bozo getting in thinking that it's not going to be cyclical, and then something happens and it becomes cyclical, right? Like that would suck, because then all these price targets that are based on, every bank has them at 190, 200. That's based on sustaining this growth. They're at 3.5 trillion. To get to 5 trillion, which wouldn't even be a 2x from here, they've got to do a lot more growth to get there. And that's another thing. I think Palantir I don't think Palantir definitely deserves to be at 170 billion or whatever, but from Palantir to go from 150 billion to 300 billion is easier to me to see than 3.5 trillion to 7 trillion on Nvidia.
Really?
Does that kind of make sense right there?
I mean, that makes sense, but it's, in my opinion, like, I think that's what people get caught up in. They buy all these second order plays from Tesla.
Palantir is not second grade. That's I mean, Palantir's a winner.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you're looking at a smaller market cap and saying, well, this is why it's going to grow, even though it's not like a 10 peg growing 30%.
I get
and you're
that,
saying, well, it would be harder for the company growing at 80+%.
I don't know, but I don't know if Palantir is as cyclical as Nvidia. That goes back to my question.
No, it's not. It's a business to business.
It's a SaaS business. And I know you're saying Nvidia has software stuff, but dude, software is 1 billion of the 30 billion of revenue they do every quarter.
No.
CUDA is 1 billion, if I'm not wrong on that.
Yeah, but the reason why they're able to sell the chips is because CUDA is the background.
Yeah, so what happens when the demand for the chips potentially slows down? That's my question to you. In 2027, 2028, 2029.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be, I think the diversification will increase. I think the drive platform, like Jensen just said at CES, will be $1 trillion+ industry. Then on the back of that, you have robotics coming after it. These are the biggest, largest order shifts in history. This will be 100x play for me.
Okay, so just to get it straight, because I'm not saying I disagree with this, but your argument is, let's say CapEx spending goes down significantly from the hyperscalers. Your argument is autonomy and robotics is what's going to keep Nvidia from being not cyclical over the next 5 years.
Well, I don't whenever I hope what you're saying, that you're not saying that the GPU spend will go to zero. You're saying it might not continue to increase.
Microsoft's not going to do 80 billion for the next 3 years, is my point.
Well, I mean, I don't think that it might not. I think that it might not increase to 100 potentially.
But do you think they're going to stay at $80 billion a year, dude, when they're already working on
Yes, because I think governments are backing this idea as well, that this is an AI Manhattan Project race. This is the race to the digital nuclear bomb, and governments are going to back that. They are currently.
That has nothing to do with the fact is Google with that is
They
working on their own
yes, because
GPUs.
they are the U.S. companies that are fighting
No, I get it.
have
I get
superiority in AI.
I get that philosophical argument, but if we get into a little bit of a recession or there's some, hiccups in the economy, Google, I don't think is going to need the best generation of the GPU versus like making sure they shareholders have capital and they can buy back. You know what I'm saying? Like they're going to make hard decisions, and I don't think they're going to get the very best GPU unless all the hyperscalers are doing it. But if all the hyperscalers are scaling back because maybe we get a little recession or a little bit of a general volatility, how can you guarantee Nvidia makes up the revenue from robotics companies? Which, by the way, some of the robotics companies are not going to use Nvidia, like a Tesla. And what if Optimus? What if Optimus wins when it comes to robotics? Like really wins, and the other guys are such D players that whatever money they're giving to Nvidia is not really going to be substantial enough to compete. Or with autonomy, right?
I think the company that has the most amount of data coming in is the one that's going to win. And Nvidia, as being the player across all of them, is going to win against the single player that's doing their own solution.
No, but Tanner, I feel like that's a contradiction. Tesla has the most data when it comes to FSD. Why would Nvidia get all the money in the world from the other OEMs when their synthetic data to train on autonomy will never be as good as Tesla's real world data?
Let me fill that. I don't know that FSD will translate to the bots necessarily, but I think Tesla does have a big lead there. But the nice thing with Nvidia is they are killing it in so many other areas. If that doesn't matriculate for them, that's fine, no big deal.
No, but the problem is if that doesn't matriculate for them and the hyperscalers slow down capex, it's done. Like it's GG,
Well,
it's over. That's the point.
I don't know that would make much of a dent in the hyperscalers. Like the demand is insatiable at this point. Eventually, it won't be, but I think we're a ways out. Dan Ives playing that clip again, like it's in the early stage. Like
so I'm Roy, why don't you buy Nvidia then?
I might, Amazon's ultimately going to win and benefit from that.
No, but that's what I'm saying. You just said that the demand is insatiable, but you don't have it, which means if Tanner's right, if they're going to keep growing at 50% for the next 5 years, everyone on planet Earth should own Nvidia, and there is like objectively no question about it.
So we know that, barring something crazy happening, which is very, very unlikely, like a 1% chance Nvidia doesn't go up, and go up pretty nicely over the next 10 years. Anything can happen in the next couple of years. The question is, so I have a very concentrated portfolio, and I want to invest in things that will outperform. I don't always get it right, but I've gotten it right a lot more than I've gotten it wrong. Nvidia it performed extremely well last year. Palantir outperformed it, but I think it was maybe third or fourth in the S&P 500, at least in November. It may have changed in December, and of course that's on top of an already great year the year before, just like Palantir. At some point, and I think that we may be there where a lot of stuff is priced in that it'll grow. The comps get harder, the growth gets a little bit harder. I think we might be actually a little bit of ways from that, but not too far. And at some point, like it just becomes a massive, fascinating, amazing company that instead of doing what it's been doing over the last couple of years, it'll double like in 3 years, which is phenomenal. It's great. But if there's a company out there that I'm like, okay, I think that this will actually do a 5x in 5 years, I'm going to go with that company instead.
So that's Tanner's point. Tanner's point is that 5x you're looking for is much harder than Nvidia 2xing in 3 years because Nvidia's growth is so guaranteed and their moat is so sticky. And I think that's his point.
Well, I'm fine with, like, there's a lot of risky things that I can invest in. Like biotech is one of those where some of those are going to 100x. I just don't know what's what, and so I'm not going to try to chase that and miss out on Nvidia. So when I'm looking at these names, I'm sharing the big two for a reason: Amazon and Nvidia. Like they're going up, and it's very clear they both benefit from this trend immensely. I think Amazon might be slightly better positioned than Nvidia.
But see, this is the issue. Amazon is not slightly better positioned when you look at growth rates. That's incorrect.
No.
Amazon might make you sleep better at night because you know what Amazon is versus Nvidia, but they shouldn't outperform Nvidia over the next couple of years.
But a lot of that, though, is you always have to I'm not putting all my money into one company, right? There's always a chance that things go wrong. There was even, I think Trey in the comments there said, what's another cyclical business? Robinhood. So there's there's opportunities for things to go down. We're not trying to bet on 100% certainty across 5 years or something along these lines, but it's what's the risk versus the reward of this happening. I'm betting on massive like tailwinds for these companies backed by extreme government backing here. Every company wants to be a part of it. We're only in the first inning. So
Tanner, would you buy Amazon or Nvidia at these levels?
I'm buying both right now.
I'm buying
Google.
But the reason you asked this Palantir and Nvidia, right? So there has to be some bind. If that's the case, there's no point to the discussion, right? There has to be a comparative. What would you pick if you had to?
Well, considering that one is like an extremely large percentage of my portfolio and the other one's a sliver, I have to say
forget your portfolio. Say you have $1,000 today, you have to pick one. Which one do you pick? That's my question.
Not financial advice. I pick Nvidia.
Why?
Because I think that this is a company that could make unbelievable, unbelievable change. Amazon, I think, is a very steady beat the market pick.
So see, this is where I think personal investing comes in. I think I sleep better at night knowing I have Amazon over Nvidia. That's just me. I feel
because it's very steady.
And I order from Amazon. Like, yeah, it's just like I get it. But you're right that technologically the innovation with Nvidia is leaps and bounds beyond Amazon just in terms of all the sectors they're getting into. But I guess that's where it comes to which one do you want?
What Amazon is, if technology wasn't changing at the rate it is right now, it would be like Walmart in the maybe 90s, like, good decade economically, and it performs, quite well. Like, it's a good, safe investment. The thing is, they pulled forward a lot of their CapEx expenditures during COVID, and they've continued to do that, not because they have to do it at that pace. They're just like, hey, this is an advantageous time. They've actually slowed it down slightly. But they employ, I looked it up, and this may not be, well, I'm sure it's probably a little bit more, but like 1.5 million people. How many of those, and this is kind of terrifying too, but how many of those 1.5 million people in the next 10 years doesn't get replaced by AI or robotics?
Does not. I think their headcount will grow over that time.
You think it'll grow in 10? I don't think so.
I do.
You're saying Amazon will grow headcount, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
It would have to be.
How many robots have they installed between the last 10 years? I think they went from 0 to over 1 million bots during that time, and their headcount grew every year.
Yeah, the bots are going to be more adaptable, but they implement that kind of technology, I think, better than anybody in the space, and they're able to do that. And so, like, it's so either way, like, if you're right, Tanner, it just means that they've grown tremendously fast, not like they're currently growing now, and that's exciting. Or if I'm right, they've grown fast, but they don't need as much human power, and so they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled, 10x their workforce with robotics, and supplementing as they go on. Who knows what regulation is going to be like and how all that works, but that's going to be much, much cheaper. And there's a cost to maintain it. But as robotics also scales out, like AWS also continues to grow and scale. Nvidia also wins in this situation too. It's not like Amazon wins and Nvidia gets crushed. They're not competitors. They're collaborators in this. But no, I think that you're understating and underappreciating what Amazon can do. It's safe. Like the base case and even the bear case is safe, and it has a lot more upside. Not as much as Nvidia, but a lot more upside than you're giving credit for.
Well, Cowboy, I am super positive Amazon. I do agree with you. They're going to have bots galore, self-driving delivery vehicles. AWS is going to continue to scale. Everything is going to be beautiful for Amazon.
So what you're saying is you hate Amazon. I'm just messing.
No, yeah. But every one of those step functions, improving AWS, self-driving vehicles, more bots in their systems, is all Nvidia. Okay. And they're not going to be the only player.
I don't know exactly if that is correct. It's correct to an extent. I don't know if it's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Like for example, what if Amazon orders 100,000 Optimus robots? I don't know if Optimus is definitely using Nvidia chips.
Yeah, but so you're
Amazon's margins go up, but Nvidia doesn't get that business from Tesla.
Yeah, but you're betting on one company versus the fleet of robots that you're taking a look at.
Yeah, but Tanner, that's a bad argument. What if a lot of these robot startups are going to go bankrupt?
No,
There's gonna be a winner
what's
take all.
really going to happen is it's not going to be it's not going to be Optimus things. What Andy Jassy is going to do is he's going to buy a robot startup and they're going to manufacture them themselves, like every other thing that they do.
I don't think Amazon cares about making the robots and selling them. I think they care
Amazon
about,
already has a massive fleet
yeah,
of
yeah, no,
robots.
we're talking about yes, they do. We're talking about humanoid robots that are very hard to build. The
Doesn't change a
accentuator
thing.
battery technology is not easy. I think Amazon wants to replace 1 million people that they have to worry about bathroom breaks, HR, etc. For a robot for 1/5 the price. I mean, that shoots their operating margins through the roof. Not building a robot company and then selling robots.
It's not about selling robots, but using them for their own. They already do that.
That's what I'm saying. They would, dude. They don't need to make the. If Optimus is perfect, why would they not just buy 100,000 Optimus? They're going to save billions of dollars on labor costs, and then boom.
No, they're going to manufacture warehouse-specific robots that will be much cheaper that don't need to be generalized because they don't have a generalized business. It's a factory.
That's what Optimus is. Like these are robots that can be in Walmart.
I know, but they don't need that.
So yeah, that's the thing with the Amazon play is Walmart would need that just because there's people around. You have to be very careful, and they do have like sweeping bots and that. But to do what they need there in Walmart, they have to also build for people, and so they need a bot that mimics people as much as possible. Also help people feel a little bit safer around them, probably depending on what they look like. If they look like Terminator, probably not the best look. But Amazon, yeah, they can. They can actually build their warehouses for the robots. They don't have to worry about humans going through that because that's all they're there for. And so as a result, they have that advantage. So
my point
this guy in chat saying if Amazon wanted to do that, they would have done that with their own vehicles. What's Rivian? Like they are actively trying to do this in all aspects of their business.
Yeah, but again, that doesn't mean Nvidia gets like what if Amazon goes through a robot company that's not using Nvidia? Unless you think every robot company is using Nvidia, which maybe is correct.
The same concept would be said through data centers. They're not the only semiconductor thing. The power is in Cosmos, is that if they are creating all of this data and they have all the warehouses, they'll be smarter to install through. It's the same thing with Palantir, any of these things. It's the step functions get better and better with the more companies that you're, dealing with.
This is the nuance between Palantir. Palantir is AIP is using a bunch of LLMs, right? So the LLMs is where Nvidia gets paid because they sell the GPUs to train the LLMs. My question is, when we get to ChatGPT 15 and we can't get any better than that, you don't need more GPUs to train it. It's done. So Palantir doesn't need Nvidia to sell more GPUs. They just need to go to other hospitals that need AIP. And they already have the LLMs that they're integrating into their software. That's where the cyclicality dies for Palantir. And it becomes very real for Nvidia if we ever get to that point. And so that's my argument, which is like at some point, if the GPUs stop needing to be sold, then I don't think there's as much lack of cyclicality as you're talking about. And I just fundamentally disagree. I do not think Amazon's trying to build a humanoid robotic company internally. I think they would much rather buy the robots, even if it costs a couple billion, because they're going to be saving so much money by replacing older employees.
In my opinion, this replacement isn't going to happen the way that people think. I think that humans will always have jobs. They will just be actively offering new services as like, so instead of Uber Eats of some guy going and picking up from something, there'll just be some self-driving car where the cooks are in the back of the car making the food and then they deliver it hot to your front door. Like the service will change to match the level of service that they're able to deliver. So
how do you make a burger in the back of a car?
Well, it's the car is a van.
Just use a robot to cook it.
Yeah, but until that happens, that will be the step function. And then like, so the best way that I could think about this is like Salesforce. You can deliver a CRM to a company and say, here's your client relationship management tool. There you go. And then what do they need all these employees for? Well, because then companies will say, well, I want mine a little bit more customized than that. Can you make me a custom solution? Right? This is why we have all these businesses to create custom solutions, because we have manpower to do so. If the internet would have taken all jobs if we just wanted all a basic solution, and there'd be no differentiation between software companies. But I do want these little bit of change, and that's where the humans are going to come in, is the offering that we're going to offer up to people in B2B or B2C is just going to get crazy specific.
So you might be right about that for some industries, but what you're looking at right now is something that a human doesn't need to do, and these are the far majority of jobs across the world. This
Yep.
is why the robotic TAM is so large. So my
And
point
guess
is,
what? Farming was the largest job way back in the day, and now it makes up for less than 2% of the population. Jobs change.
no, I get it, but my point is, dude, if hundreds of thousands of people are at Amazon putting boxes from here to here, and they don't need to do that anymore,
They're
those
actively
people
being
are
replaced today.
unemployed. No, let's not sugarcoat it. Those people don't have a job.
No,
it.
they get replaced. They get moved.
Move
They'll
to
do something
doing
else.
what?
The
That's-
same thing. They already have employed 1 million new people.
But
Amazon
Tanner,
will expand. but
Logically, this argument doesn't make sense because then the companies wouldn't even buy the bots if they were going to keep employing the human. The only reason they're spending money on the bots is to save money
No,
off the employees.
it's for expansion, dude. How has Amazon went from 0 bots to 1 million bots while they've increased headcount? If it wasn't to replace headcount,
Let's be specific.
that is very specific. I want you to answer that specific question.
Bots are not humanoid robots. There's a difference. Amazon has a lot of robotics.
You don't need humanoid robots on a factory floor on line work. The work is the same.
No, but what if you could replace all those line workers with the robots, the humanoid robots? Why do you need the line workers? That's the question.
Because you're not going to be able to do, where I think all right, we'll have to see how it plays out. I'm just betting on the future that humans don't get 100% replaced, because there's been a lot of great technological advancements in history and we've never gotten replaced.
Yeah, this is a lot closer though to the mechanization and the replace animal power when we shifted from an agrarian civilization to where we are today. And there was a lot of displacement. Anomie was a term that was coined in the 40s and 50s, Emil Durkheim, just because of the massive displacement and change in society. And I think that we'll see something like that. And the reality is, Tanner, they're in no disrespect to somebody that's like stacking boxes or packaging or doing something like that. And I know a lot of that's automated with Amazon. I've done that job before. You know, when I was first married, I did something very similar.
We won't need that job. That job will go away.
But a lot of those people, so bots get, in this scenario, bots get good enough to replace a lot of this manual labor stuff, whether it's software, whether it's hardware. And I think that the technology does advance to that point. All of a sudden, you have workers that are displaced. Yes, you have some new jobs that are created, but for somebody that, you know, is doing moving box work. So we have friends that have 2 daughters that have some special needs. Like they'll be able to live kind of on their own with some supervision. They work in a grocery store. They like stack and restock some things. You're not going to retrain them how to program on CUDA or how to repair bots. Like they don't have that within them. And it's, even if there aren't special needs, there are people that are just lower IQ, just the way that the whole spectrum breaks down.
Yeah.
That'll really struggle with that shift. Like I know, and I'm actually friends with the truck driver. There's some brilliant truck drivers out there, but a lot of those guys just don't have the skills or wherewithal, especially if they're in their 40s or 50s and they're not yet ready to retire. If all those trucks are suddenly robots on the road, like what will the truck driver do? And so these are, and that's why I said it's kind of a scary thing to think how much of that 1.5 million people at Amazon will be displaced. And yes, there will be new jobs, but if, 90% are irreplaceable, and let's say that they say, well, we can replace 90, but we won't, because of all these different reasons, including humanitarian, but they're not a charity. So they replace just half. That's still a massive amount of people that need to have new jobs, need to have new skills. And this is going to come a lot more rapidly than the mechanization of the 20s. So
also, Tanner, we're seeing this already with Waymo. Like those drives should be going to a human getting a certain amount of dollars per hour via Uber. Waymo's 150,000 paid rides per week are being done that could go to a taxi driver or an Uber driver. How is that not replacing those jobs?
It is replacing those jobs. It doesn't mean that those people cannot get jobs.
No, hold on. No. You're telling me an Uber driver is going to go work for Google and manually program that? Like, no, dude.
Let's look back in time. How many people are doing what we're doing right now? What job description do you have, Amit?
Tanner, we are not safe. If AI gets good enough and people go to AI for their content, we're fucked too.
I don't agree. I think we're very safe.
I think they'll always want a human touch.
I
but
think the
yeah,
best of
me
the
too.
best
This is
content
art.
creators are safe. There's always going to be need for authentic connection.
How many people go to ChatGPT and say, print me some beautiful AI art, and they hang that on their walls?
Look, I get it.
You
But
know,
my point is,
what makes Harry Potter the most special story? Is it because that's the best story ever told, or is it kind of special because that came out of a single person's head? Like, that's the crazy part. Like,
you're going to the extremes. Let me give you a more realistic example.
no,
Let me give you this is a realistic example. Investopedia, everyone probably knows this website. It's a good website to learn about the stock market, news, etc. I used to go to them because I would Google a question and it would get directed to their page. Now I go to ChatGPT, which means the journalist or the content blogger who is writing about how to do call debit spreads on Investopedia. GPT has an LLM that's trained on all that data, even if they stole it. And I interact with GPT, not the content blogger from Investopedia. That is a content creator that just got replaced.
because they were faceless.
Okay, my point is, like, there is nuance to this idea of being replaced, but at the end of the day, people are getting replaced. The Waymo product is replacing Uber drivers. That's true.
Bro, the amount of stables that got replaced whenever the cars came out was very real. It doesn't mean that everyone went, oh, okay, well, I can't have stable anymore, and I'm not a mechanic, so I'm going to go die. No, they went
Hold on. So hold on. The New York City taxi driver who's done it for 20 years, when FSD replaces him, what do you think he does if you're so confident he'll get another job?
I don't know exactly what they do. What happened during COVID whenever everyone's
no.
But they had to go home.
He's not going to become a content creator. It takes some talent to be able to put out content and figure out how to work with algorithms. He's not going to learn how to code. Like, what do you think he's going to do?
You're talking specific examples that, like, you have this person made up in your head. You're saying they can't do these things.
I am talking about my dad who drives a truck. If he can't drive a truck anymore, what does he do? Because
he puts out whiskey reviews on YouTube. Like, I don't know.
That's
like,
not
so
gonna happen. That's my point.
So during COVID, Shopify saw this massive boon because there was these people who had never tried being an entrepreneur before that were forced to go start their candle companies. Like, I don't know what people get into.
Tanner, I don't know what world you live in or what weed you're smoking in California where you think people can just start a candle company and become an entrepreneur when they've lost their job. That is not the
average. It happened like crazy. People have to survive.
Let me interject here. And so I think that we're actually closer to the horses and oxen, the mules. This is the horse population, the U.S. equine population during mechanization of agriculture and transportation. So what's happening is back there is a replacement of animal labor and some human labor with mechanical labor. Now we're seeing the same thing with AI and, of course, robots as well, replacing and displacing human manual labor. And so the question is not like, what will some brilliant guy that just happens to be a dock worker do if his job is displaced? Most people are in those positions just because that's what they could get at the time, or they're just temporarily there building for something else, or they just have limited skills, and that's reality, and it's hard for them to change. And so over time, that population of horses collapsed from 25 million in 1920 to now it's 2 point something million. I saw as far as with modern day. I think that's accurate, and that doesn't mean like people will be dying off, but that's basically showing manual labor jobs what can happen as this builds out, and it'll build out much faster than this mechanization because it takes a lot. Things just happen faster. These
things. I think you're being.
I'm not saying, like, you guys are saying that you think that I don't think things are going to change. Things are going to change very quick. I use the horse example to my, like, all I'm saying is unemployment is very low, even in a world where we have completely destroyed so many jobs through automation. The internet has automated so many jobs away.
Well, not necessarily. The internet has provided democratization for people to then use the internet as a platform. We are talking about a different type of revolution. We are talking about the person who has for 30 years moved a box from here to here doesn't get to do that anymore. And I'm not hearing the answer, or the Uber driver, where they go.
You just don't believe my answer. I think that Amazon will continue to expand faster than they can deploy more. Like, this will lead to faster growth, not just replacement. So those people will work in other areas of the factory where the robots are currently working in other areas. And then they will come up with new services that require immediate deployment of humans to know those jobs rather than robots. And
But
then
a
once
lot of
those
it's the physical labor that's being replaced, and not everybody is going to be able to do some mental
That's my point.
task.
That's my point,
If
Tanner.
it's
We got to think about the average worker. Like,
so I know, like, one of those things that were cited, and I thought it was the dumbest thing, like a couple of years ago. People are like, "Well, you have this fleet of robots, and people would be managing it." Yes, true, good, but not everybody can do that. Not everyone is equipped. Not everyone is trainable for that. And they're like, "Well, there'll still be people that will need to repair the robots." Why would you not build a robot when they get this good to repair the robots? You absolutely would. And so this manual labor is what's being replaced. And it, just like it was with the milkman, just like it was with the guy that delivered ice to the ice boxes, the new jobs were created, yes. And I don't know that as many jobs will be created at this point, because basically we're talking about the potential of all manual labor, and not just physical manual labor, but that manual labor on copying data over from here and analyzing it, looking at that's replaceable potentially by AI and by robotics. And so, but even if it is a 1-for-1 replacement, you have plenty of milkmen who are 40, 50 years old and just have limited skills, maybe limited IQ, that, some of those will still have some things that they can do. Maybe, Walmart greeter, like, that's not going to be a robot ever. They need that for the human touch. But there's a limited number of those jobs. There really, really are. And so the question is, and I don't have a good answer for this because I do not like the idea of UBI, but the question is, like, what do we do as a society if things scale that rapidly and it displaces that many people? I don't know. That's scary.
It could happen for certain people. I'm definitely not thinking about every classification or rung of person. But
Rashab has this comment. He said to highlight, New York cab drivers will probably start owning their own fleet of autonomous vehicles. I disagree. This takes a lot of capital to be able to.
Yeah.
This is not the solution. And maybe I'm not being creative enough to think of the solution of where the New York cab driver will go, but I don't.
That is also true. You have to give yourself some criticism to say that, like,
but you're not giving me an answer to either, Tanner. So I'm
not a fortune teller. I'm just saying there have been
I'm not
times
where I'm asking you to be logically. If this guy gets replaced, you're saying he'll be fine. I'm saying how. That's it. Simple question.
The same way that whenever COVID happened, people found new work as well. People have to find new work.
Not everyone can become a content creator or entrepreneur.
I get that not everyone's going to be safe, but all I'm saying is we're in a time where we are forgetting how many steps that we've taken even now to still stay at such low unemployment. Like, new jobs do come, and that, like, the compliance officers, this is a brand new job. Like manicurists and pedicurists, that is a brand new profession. We didn't need that before whenever times were hard. But now things are real easy, so people want their nails done. Like, these are brand new professions.
And robots will be glad to take that job too. But in case anyone is misinterpreting us, and I don't see anyone in the comments, but watching later, none of us are against innovation or technology. We want to see these things happen. There's just not everything is rosy and perfect in this dream of acceleration of robotics and AI. There are people that will maybe be a little bit worse off in this. Maybe even they'll be even better off. But the hard thing about a job is, at least in the United States, and I think many places in the world too, what you do is very much a part of who you are.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why that the massive displacement that really accelerated, especially right after World War II, hit so many. Suicide rates and depression rose just rapidly, is because there's a lot of displacement. Society changed very, very rapidly, and even entire city structures just, it was a very different place and time. So there's going to be people that are hurt, but they still may be better off. But if so much of their identity is tied into what they did, and they no longer have that, man, that's just really rough for people's mental health. And so they're just like, it's not just a UBI. Like, there's probably a lot of issues with it just on the monetary economics and stuff, but I don't think that's enough alone of like, oh, here's some money, you can survive. That's going to suck for a lot of people. There's people that don't want to work and they'll be like, hey, this is great. But a lot of people, like, they'll just be like, this is terrible. It's demeaning. I don't know. I could be wrong.
So two things before we end this off. Number one, just answer some comments.
This was an hour long, 5 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, but you brought this up. You're like, hey, do you have any other stocks to talk about? Then we get into it. But I don't think this is happening anytime soon. I think this is a while away. So for everyone saying, oh, Amit thinks people will lose their jobs tomorrow. No, obviously, like
Amit hates cab drivers.
We are very far away from the great replacement from happening in terms of people and robots. Number two,
quarter two, right?
Yeah, quarter two. Number two, I am not taking the side that productivity gains are bad. I'm actually arguing the opposite. I'm saying it's inevitable that the robots are going to take the jobs. I don't have an answer for what's going to happen to those jobs, but I'm saying, yes, like you should be invested in the Teslas of the world or in the Nvidias of the world if they're making all the chips, because they're the ones providing the foundational elements to replace those jobs. But those jobs are getting replaced. The disagreement between Tanner and I is that he thinks the replacement won't happen at such a grand scale. I think it will. And I don't have an answer for what's going to happen, but I do think the government or someone's going to have to get involved, because I don't think a Uber driver is going to start a candle business.
Yeah. And I mean, worst comes to worst, even if I'm 100% wrong, the government might tax robot headcount and
I agree.
Potentially companies will either be forced to pay that out in taxes and then the government will pay out UBI, or investing is by far the one job that is not going away. Yeah. Ownership in these companies are going to stay private, and who knows, maybe companies will start to incentivize payout ratios and dividends over other forms of growth if that becomes the case.
Yeah, the thing is, though, and that's the nice thing is, if this plays out, even if people are displaced, productivity is so high that people can be provided for one way or another. But what I'm saying is that displacement goes beyond just physical. Like there is a point where people will be depressed and feel like useless. Like, why do I even exist? What's the point? And especially when AI is just and robotics have taken over to that extent, it's like, why should I even exist? And that's not a good place to be. And there are good answers for that, but it's not. I don't even think it's something that the government can do. Something that individuals, schools, parents, friends, churches, civic figures, those sort of people need to step up. So I don't think we're ready. I'm glad.
Right, I hope it's not. Let's wrap this up.
Maybe we just end up buying Bitcoin and we all.
That's right.
Don't worry about anything ever again. So
digital.
There you go, folks. We're done. This is Hood Weekly, but we spent an hour on stuff outside of Hood. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, even if it wasn't just Hood stuff, but we covered a decent amount of it for the first part of the show.
AI Weekly coming soon.
Maybe we got to do an AI week. I mean, I enjoyed the conversation. I think it's good. Yeah,
I think you could just get your guy, Amit, to just program the three of us to do the AI Weekly. We don't even have to show up.
Yeah, that's true. We don't need to look, the best content creators and people that have an authentic relationship with their audience, yes, they're going to be around. I'm just saying there are elements of content creation, like graphic designers. A lot of them are being replaced by just typing in something into Sora. That's
faceless YouTubers are going to go away. Well, I mean, they won't go away, but that will be AI.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Thank everybody. We'll be back next Monday on Robinhood Weekly. Bye, everyone. Have a good one. See you guys tomorrow in the market open. Bye, everybody.